The Mysticism of Masonry. Chapter 1. The Mysticism of Masonry. The mystical facet of Masonry serves not merely as the key to the diverse religions imparted to mankind throughout every era, from the nascent dawn of conscious, reasoning existence unto the present day, but it is, in truth, the very repository of religion itself. The ancient mysteries of the secret schools bear this appellation because beneath that title was, and remains, preserved all that humanity has believed and continues to believe, all that mankind has been taught and has experienced through submission to a transcendent existence. Consequently, these secret schools safeguard the arcana of all inner initiation. The mysteries maintain now, as they have throughout the protracted ages of antiquity, as their foundational premise the existence of God, Jehovah Adonai, the Father of light, and the immortality of the soul. This soul, in the parlance of the initiates, is and must perpetually remain an ever-burning fire, a light that must be drawn into intimate communion with the Father of all light from whence it originally emanated. The mysteries acknowledge man as, in essence, a living temple wherein God, the Father of light, may take up residence, a light which constitutes both life and immortality. This is the selfsame temple concerning which we are instructed in the biblical narrative, as well as in exoteric masonry, that it was constructed without hands, devoid of the sound of a hammer or any clamor whatsoever. These mysteries acknowledge the Christos, christened as the Christ many centuries prior to the advent of the elder brother, Jesus, as a vital, actuating principle within the soul of man, bereft of which no mortal may become superhuman or consciously immortal. The objective of these mysteries was, as it remains, the unification of awakened humanity into a universal brotherhood wherein right constitutes might. A brotherhood that exercises benevolence, practices virtue and the arts, and studies in coordination the laws of both nature and God, prepared to accept them as holding equal paramountcy in the life of man while dwelling upon the terrestrial plane. From these mysteries, Masonry was birthed as an outer school so that the multitudes might be instructed in these fundamental tenets. Through this medium, the path was illuminated by which the sublime zeniths might ultimately be attained. The cradle of the symbolism employed in all Masonic endeavors is situated by numerous authoritative scholars in that region which they have cause to believe was the first inhabited, the plateau of Tartary. From thence, the teachings were subsequently transmitted by the sages of India, Persia, Ethiopia, and Egypt unto their respective domains. It is an established verity that at Memphis, Egypt, within the pyramids and under the tutelage of the king initiates, the mystic rites of what would subsequently be known as Oriental Masonry were observed many millennia ago. In that remote epoch, Egypt and the landmass presently known as America constituted one and the same continent. Therefore, we are not, in fact, indebted to Egypt as she is known today, but rather to America, the home of the eagle and the custodian of the capstone destined to consummate the Masonic edifice for all eternity. Although the mysteries were anciently governed by priest initiates or initiate kings, the mystic rite was nonetheless accessible to all men who could, from the depths of their hearts, confess a belief in the fatherhood of one God and the brotherhood of all mankind, and who were capable of persuading the initiators that they were whole men, unblemished by defect. This proviso, the ancient law instructs us, bore no reference to the loss of a hand or foot, finger or toe, but rather to a virile manhood capable of reproducing the species, and thus still in possession of the elixir vitae, through which alone spiritual initiation and conscious immortalization may ultimately be achieved. The letter of this law still prevails in exoteric masonry, yet its spirit has long since expired. In America, rediscovered by Eric the Red, a Viking among Vikings and repopulate by the white race commencing in the 17th century, was reclaimed that portion of Egypt, the Promised Land or the land of the constellation of the Eagle Parsons' new light from the Great Pyramid. Irrespective of how numerous or intricate the wards of a lock may prove to be, if the correct key is applied, it must inevitably open. The Great Pyramid of ancient Egypt, when scrutinized and compared alongside the wondrous structures of a similar nature in the Yucatan, proves to be the long-sought key to the enigmas of mythology and the great world religions. It is of particularly vital concern to Americans to witness the gradual demonstration that the chronicles of cosmic terrors, interwoven into the very fabric of all literature, both Christian and pagan, refer to occurrences as literally true as the fearsome and devastating earthquakes of modern times, such as those witnessed in California and Japan. These stupendous events were linked, firstly, to a profound destruction and subsequent restoration of equilibrium within the solar system, and secondly, to the resultant submergence of the continent of Atlantis, which befell the globe as a consequence of the Atlanteans' defiance of both natural and divine law. Atlantis was, at that time, the seat of the greatest empire ever known to humanity, and its armies were terrorizing the remainder of the inhabited globe. An examination of the American constellations, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and Capricorn, reveals the immemorial antiquity of the name of America, alongside the profound significance embedded within the arms of the United States. Once we recognize the reality that it is impossible to sever the eagle from America, the land shadowing with wings described by Isaiah, over which accordingly appear two grand eagles, the red swan soaring down the Milky Way, and the winged steeds Pegasus and Equuleus, encompassing all the wings known to astronomy, without simultaneously stripping the bear from Russia and Perseus from Persia, a flood of illumination is cast upon the history of mythology. Where heretofore much has remained vague and inscrutable, we are now empowered to perceive as men should perceive when endowed with enlightened mentalities. All of this is predicated upon the prophecies of antiquity and the interpretations rendered by both biblical and secular scholars. And now arrives the master interpreter of the new dispensation, the prophet of the Father of Light, Jehovah Adonai, unto whom is bequeathed the following message. I, the Lord thy God, the Father of Light, do now speak unto thee, my son Mysticism, declaring, in my infinite wisdom, I have deemed it fitting to situate thee amongst the multitudes of my people in the new world, whither I have spiritually guided many of these, my chosen, who are destined to behold the face of the Lord, their God, whilst they yet reside in the flesh. In this new age it shall be granted unto thee to instruct these, my people, in the path of the Lord of light, so that all who traverse it shall be liberated from their infirmities and appear akin to the gods who walked the face of the earth during the first dispensation, ere man had learned to do aught but live in strict obedience to my laws. And it shall come to pass that as my children hearken unto thy voice and offer obedience to the laws thou shalt impart, they shall wax strong and fearless, and their creations shall serve the beatific welfare of all my creatures. Thus shall it come to pass that my kingdom shall be established in the new world, beneath the wings of the eagle, through the wisdom of the serpent, which is no longer crushed and degraded by woman, but is exalted, becoming the light that shall illuminate everyone who cometh into the world. Thus shall it further come to pass that as my children elevate the cross of the serpent, and no longer remain guilty of crushing the immortalizer, the serpent casting its seed upon the ground, they shall inherit the earth and all that is virtuous, even as foretold by my prophets who preceded thee. Tell my children that thus speaketh the Lord God, Jehovah Adonai, the Father of Light. Mysticism. Upon tracing the course of the prophetic constellations, When one reaches those immovably and perpetually affixed to America, it shall become evident that all that is sublime within the prehistoric past centers upon ancient America, Atlantis. Furthermore, as the veil that has hitherto obscured the prehistoric connection between the peoples of ancient Egypt and America is lifted, it shall be revealed that the people of the Eagle of the Nile descend from the original inhabitants of the Eagle of the continent. The twain are inextricably one. Prehistoric America was the original Egypt or Eagle Land prior to the mighty dispensation during the days of Peleg, when the earth was divided and the great globe itself was nearly rent asunder. Parsons' New Light from the Great Pyramid. Agassiz observed, "Firstborn among the continents, America has been erroneously designated as the New World. Hers was the primordial dry land raised from the waters. Man had his genesis in that portion of the Gulf Stream presently known as the Sargasso Sea. Hers was the first shore washed by the ocean that otherwise enveloped the entire earth, and while Europe was represented merely by isolated islands emerging intermittently above the sea, America already extended in an unbroken expanse from Nova Scotia to the distant west. America, the ancient continent, was evidently populated from an even older landmass, the author undoubtedly having Lemuria in mind. Because only 8 persons, a conjectural figure, were saved during the deluge of Lemuria, the principal portion of their descendants occupied the very center of Asia throughout the entirety of the 1st century following that cataclysm. Certain recognized authorities assert that America was populated by the Carthaginians, who possessed the Cape Verde Islands, a mere 3 weeks' voyage from that continent. Prior to the invention of the compass, their vessels, carrying women and children, might have missed their intended island destinations. If so, they would inevitably have been driven by the trade winds toward the American coast. Others, deducing from the parallel nature of certain religious rites, have hypothesized that America was populated by the 10 tribes during the dispersion of Israel. Some maintain that it received its populace from China or Japan. Others postulate that it was colonized by wandering tribes of Japheth, who penetrated the uncharted expanses of North America via the Straits of Asia. A few have even been sufficiently audacious to assert that America was not submerged during the deluge, and that, consequently, its aboriginal inhabitants were antediluvians, the most ancient people upon the earth. Another perspective suggests that a sparse number of individuals were preserved upon this immense continent during the deluge, ensuring it might be repopulated without difficulty. We are furthermore informed that America was peopled after the deluge, at the same time as it were with other parts of the earth equidistant from the spot whereon the ark is presumed to have grounded. For the grand partition of the eastern and western hemispheres, resulting from the natural effect of forces initiated by the deluge, did not occur until half a century after that cataclysm. Thus, a subject that has consistently confounded the most erudite historians and philosophers, and furnished the foundation for the most elaborate dissertations, namely, the precise manner by which America was populated, is rendered straightforward and uncomplicated, as are all inquiries submitted to the crucible of truth and the infallible attestations of Holy Writ. Robertson posits that the Americans derived their origins from the Asiatics, buttressing his conjectures with ancient traditions among the Mexicans. These traditions attribute their foundational populace to a horde originating from a remote country to the northwest, whose gradual migration from the northern coast where they disembarked to the interior provinces is distinctly delineated. Moreover, during the infancy of Christianity, Mexico was purportedly in a more advanced state of civilization and culture than Denmark, Sweden, or Russia. Irrespective of the peoples from whom the early Americans descended, or the precise manner in which this vast continent was initially populated with human beings, It is indisputable that its first inhabitants either brought with them or cultivated a system of mysteries, which they utilized for the purposes of religious worship. Although this system, over the passage of time, was almost entirely lost among the scattered tribes leading nomadic existences within its most profound wildernesses, numerous foundational truths upon which it was built were preserved, albeit in a deteriorated state, by the two great nations that had established themselves upon either side of the Isthmus of Panama. Oliver, History of Initiation. While considerable truth resides within these diverse theories and suppositions, they remain fundamentally erroneous. This error arises because they afford no consideration to the profound and incontrovertible fact that the land now known as America was inhabited by an entirely distinct populace from those later encountered by Eric the Red. The native inhabitants of Peru were venerated as the children of the sun. Indeed, Lemuria was the continent of the sun, and its coppery-skinned denizens were the original children of the sun. They were the primordial sun worshippers, the very first to revere the sun as a giver of light, serving as a symbol of the Father of light, from whom all illumination emanates. During the deluge, the catastrophic inundation of Lemuria, a contingent of these inhabitants secured sanctuary upon the remnants of their sinking homeland. These surviving landmasses were subsequently adjoined, as it were, to nascent territories that emerged from the waters even as Lemuria foundered beneath the waves. These Lemurians evolved into the sun-worshipping native populations of present-day America, as well as those of the territories now comprising Mexico and Peru. Historically, Mexico and America were partitioned by a vast expanse of water. The sandy soils of Tennessee and various other southern states bear silent witness to their former existence as a seabed. Even a region as distant as New Jersey clearly signifies, through its sandy composition and shrub-like flora, that it was only recently relinquished by the receding sea, perhaps a mere 10 millennia ago. Climatic and other divergent environmental conditions between North America and Peru precipitated the subtle variations in customs and religious ceremonies observed between the North American native populations and the Aztecs. Consequently, in the wake of Lemuria's submersion, a new continent ascended, which is known to us as Atlantis. The peoples who erected the obelisks in Egypt and inscribed them with hieroglyphics, who enveloped mummies and embalmed them with the utmost meticulousness, possessed no greater knowledge concerning the architects of the pyramids than we do today. These majestic, voiceless sentinels, with their heads uncovered, the capstone, the culmination of the mystery, having been lost and lifted heavenward, stood there upon the broad plain, silent and mute, bereft of anyone to elucidate their genesis at the moment when Egyptian civilization, as history currently chronicles it, commenced. Jordan. This assertion cannot be successfully refuted. The pyramids were erected by a populace of Atlantean extraction, long centuries prior to the emergence of historical Egypt. A question naturally arises among earnest scholars. If the Atlanteans constructed these monuments, why did they do so in the territory presently known as Egypt, rather than in modern-day America? The answer lies in the reality that Egypt then constituted the geographical center of the earth, positioned such that, for a specific duration each year, the sun would rest so directly above the Great Pyramid as to cast no shadow. Possessing vast reservoirs of wisdom, the Atlanteans sought out this center. The discovery of the center serves as the key to all the mysteries of both preceding and forthcoming ages, and it was precisely for the preservation of this key that the ancient mysteries were initially instituted. The presumption that humanity has remained entirely ignorant of the pyramid's original purpose is inherently flawed. The initiates of the genuine mystic orders have long understood that these structures were engineered as a grand repository, designed for the preservation of the secrets of the ages. It must perpetually be borne in mind that there exist ever two opposing systems founded upon the single principle of truth. The first is designated for the priest initiates. The second is relegated to the multitude, those who readily accept the written word, yet remain unwilling to delve into the profound depths necessary to unravel for themselves the true spirit of the word. Not merely do the ancient mysteries preserve the key to supreme initiation, but they likewise safeguard the secret of the foundation of religion itself, as well as the combination that unlocks the doors to the mysteries of the pyramids. The shape of the pyramid is of the most profound significance to the initiate. The triangular form of the pyramid is sacredly emblematical of the fire, the light, and Jehovah Adonai, that is to say, the Father of light, spoke unto his messenger Mysticism, saying, I shall appear to thee in the image of light. For did I not promise those who have gone before thee that the woman clothed with the sun should be with them? And I now establish a covenant with thee and bind my laws to a fulfillment of this covenant, that all of my children who will obey the laws shall be blessed and comforted when in misfortune or sorrow, for I shall appear to them in the fire as an angel of light. Mysticism to his apostles. The cubical form of the pyramid symbolizes the earth visited by fire. Fire, in turn, signifies love, which is the ultimate symbol of life and immortality, the instigator of all that relates to fatherhood, generation, and the medium or pathway to regeneration. Without heat, which is invariably the result of combustion, fire, life would rapidly become extinct and there would remain no manifesting medium for souls who seek to attain conscious immortality, godhood. Could the initiates of antiquity possibly have conceived a more enduring monument than these very pyramids, attesting to the fact that they possessed the true knowledge, that they, above all men, knew God, and that he acknowledged them as his sons? The Egyptian pyramids arouse within us a sense of the sublime, not solely on account of their spatial vastness, but also because of their immense antiquity. We feel ourselves dwarfed to insignificance in their presence, yet we revel in the pleasure of contemplating them. Before such a monument of ancient greatness, which has outlived the knowledge of itself, we stand as senseless and uncomprehending as the animal in the presence of human action, or as a man before something written in an ancient cipher of his own creation, the key to which he has forgotten. For who will believe that those who, at incalculable cost, mobilized the human power of many thousands for many years in order to construct the pyramids, could have had in view only the short span of their own lives, a span too brief to permit them to witness the completion of the giant project, or even the ostensible purpose which the ignorance of the multitude required them to allege? Clearly, then, their true purpose was to speak to their most distant descendants, to place themselves in communication with them, and thus to establish the unity or the consciousness of humanity. Schopenhauer. It remains further certain that such immense science, labor, and treasure as were required to erect so extraordinary and gigantic a structure would not have been expended by men as skillful and ingenious as its builders were, without an objective in view fully commensurate, at least within their own minds, with the magnitude of the project. Hence, if astronomy demonstrates that the Great Pyramid was designed with reference to a relationship between the Pleiades and a certain pole star, it is obvious that this correlation must have been of the utmost importance within the cosmological systems of the builders, the veritable key to all the wisdom of antiquity. To those ancient sages, the cosmos was literally a universe, or a revolution around a single center. Their doctrine of the unity of nature, now corroborated by spectrum analysis and the reign of law, was tersely encapsulated within the famous axiom of the Smaragdin tablet of Hermes. That which is below is as that which is above, and that which is above is as that which is below. This fundamental concept they expressed in various manners, such as by ascribing celestial descent to their rulers while associating their monumental deeds with appropriate constellations and, in Egypt if not elsewhere, by laying out the land, dividing its districts, and naming its cities in allusion to astronomy, a course which, as Drummond makes appear probable through an etymological examination of the Hebrew names of places and persons, the 12 tribes of Israel pursued upon entering the Promised Land, bearing the 12 signs of the zodiac as their tribal emblems. From this perspective, it appeared remarkable, insofar as the present writer could ascertain, that no student of the pyramid had surmised that, quite possibly, in the Great Pyramid we possess the connecting link between the astronomy and the geography of the ancients. Such a connecting link, if recovered, would naturally be expected to determine, incidentally, the long-lost equal measurement boundaries of the zodiacal constellations. And, should it further prove to be the link between the science and the religion of antiquity, then possibly something might be discovered in the vein of Schelling's brilliant hypothetical surmise. How if, in mythology, the ruins of a superior intelligence, and even a perfect system, were found, which would reach far beyond the horizon which the most ancient written records present to us. Parsons' New Light from the Great Pyramid. This is precisely what has been discovered. In the supreme initiation we possess the key. It is not solely the key that unlocks the mystery of the soul throughout its future journeys and environments, but we have likewise rediscovered the lost word, which the Master Mason degree teaches was lost. There is no presumption in this, and we make no statement that may not be verified by the sincere seeker who is willing to set aside the self and obey the law governing the soul in its relationship to God and His universe. Squaring the circle was historically supposed, and is still widely believed to be impossible. Yet this is precisely what each aspirant to the mysteries must accomplish. The work does not conclude here, for the square must also be transformed into a circle, the perfect soul being symbolized by the winged globe as well as by the pyramid with its capstone intact. The masters of the greater mysteries consistently promised the aspirant that he should not merely bring the soul into consciousness, but that he should be brought consciously face to face with his soul, so that he might attain the absolute assurance of his immortality. With the dawn of the new age, the Father of Man has made even more profound promises. Speaking through his messenger, Manisis, he declares, I, the Lord God of hosts, covenant with thee, Manisis, my beloved messenger, that if thy brethren will heed thy voice and obey my law as thou shalt teach them, then shall they truly return to the fold and once again become my children. And through thee I promise them that they shall solve the mystery of their being. They shall cause the mortal to put on immortality, and their soul, which is of the Father, shall become consciously immortal, so that they shall not see death. And I, the Lord God, Jehovah Adonai, who am also the Father of light, further make covenant with thee, that if these children of my spirit shall obey the law which thou proclaimest unto them, they shall see the Lord their God while yet in the flesh. For I promise thee that when they have need of me, I shall appear to them in the light of their own soul. Manisis. The round churches of the Templars were constructed in a circular or cycler form in direct allusion to astronomical facts. All the round chapter houses and choirs were designed in this manner for the selfsame reason that the churches of the Templars were built round. In the chapter houses and crypts until the 13th century, the secret religion, perpetuating the relics of a science not falsely so-called, was celebrated in secure seclusion from the profane and ignorant vulgar. The eternal ethical truths, deduced by the grandest minds from the astronomical events connected with the history of the planetary fratricide, were communicated to the common people, the Mass within the nave of the Church as the Ark of Salvation, in allegories akin to that of Hagar. Thus, the initiates perpetually sought to bring within the comprehension of the humblest minds the fruits of the most arduous, albeit the most sublime and venerable, learning. The esoteric and sacred dimensions of religion originated from the inherent and insuperable difficulty of conveying profound truths to the uninitiated, as well as the necessity of preserving the records of nature's grand phenomena. In the absence of universal relationships, genuine ethics are rendered impossible, leaving only mere expediency. The entirety of mystery and allegory evolved from the imperative to employ symbols and characters through which the adepts might discourse among themselves, yet which would remain incomprehensible to the uninformed. As the latter constituted an overwhelming majority, the erudite discovered their symbols co-opted from their grasp, finding themselves entirely precluded from rectifying the misconceptions born of widespread ignorance or elucidating their true significance. Parsons' New Light from the Great Pyramid. It was never the design of the priest-initiates that the mysteries should become as profoundly concealed as they ultimately did. The initiates were exceedingly amenable to receiving all aspirants who presented themselves with genuine sincerity. Furthermore, they were prepared to impart to the populace all the profound truths that they were capable of receiving. In those times, precisely as in the present, the masses were far more inclined to impose their own interpretations upon the symbols, and upon what they erroneously presumed to be the inner doctrines of these masters, than to accept the unadulterated truths from the priests. The populace, then as now, demonstrated a profound reluctance to adhere to the law in its proper spirit, condemning the initiates for possessing an understanding beyond the mere letter, that is to say, for reaping the spiritual harvest of their obedience. The perennial accusation leveled by churchmen, asserting that the secret fraternities function as universities of the devil due to their refusal to admit all supplicants, serves as a clear indication of the wisdom possessed by these accusers. It is not the masters, priests, or initiates who deny entry to the multitude. Rather, it is their own ignorance and obstinate refusal to obey that effect their exclusion. The initiates have long understood the invaluable truth spoken by one among their ranks. Neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet. All orders remain open to the sincere aspirant who is prepared to tread the path. However, even those granted admittance must be rigorously tested and proven worthy before the deeper mysteries are unveiled to them, lest they turn renegade against their solemn obligations and disseminate these teachings with distorted interpretations, thereby bringing even greater odium upon the initiates and the mysteries. All Masonry of antiquity was fundamentally concerned with the ethics and symbolism of the ancient mysteries. Should the Masons of the present epoch earnestly seek the spirit of the symbolism upon which the degrees are founded, the most magnificent achievements in knowledge and reconstruction shall become attainable, and the secrets concealed within the greater mysteries of antiquity shall be restored to them. In the strictest sense, this wisdom has never been lost. It has merely been safeguarded within the secluded crypts of the faithful, granted only to the aspirant who has conclusively demonstrated his worthiness to possess it. The mystery was initially veiled to obscure it from the profane and to ensure self-preservation. It was articulated in the universal language of symbolism, ensuring that the wise across all nations and throughout all ages might decipher and comprehend it. It was conveyed through parable and allegory, thereby guaranteeing that the unlettered and common folk who possessed sincere faith, and who were willing to honor the spirit rather than merely the letter, would not be deprived of its sagacious precepts, nor of its power to mold character, dispel ignorance, and inspire hope. This ancient wisdom constitutes the very foundation from which Masonry emerged. For the most part, the authentic science of symbolism fell into obscurity. The temples of initiation were either abandoned to decay or systematically destroyed by priests and potentates who were jealous of their influence. For many weary centuries, humanity has endeavored to recover the lost key with which to resurrect the ancient wisdom from the parables and allegories wherein it remains concealed. However, owing to the reluctance of many such seekers to forsake their ego and submit to the guidance of the adepts, progress remains inevitably gradual and precarious. The majority of these attempts have yielded fantastic flights of imagination, generating confusion rather than enlightenment, and, in numerous instances, culminating in outright soul-destroying frauds of the most pernicious and criminal nature. The ultimate consequence has been to subject the entire discipline to derision, reducing the term mysticism to imply something nebulous, dubious, and frequently absurd in the eyes of those ignorant of its authentic significance. Yet now the new dispensation has commenced. The ancient mysteries shall be unveiled in all their resplendence to the multitudes who seek life, immortality, and the conquest of death. To these millions, the voice of the messenger of the new age shall arrive as a profound benediction, and they shall hearken and strive to obey. They shall commence to live by the Spirit, rather than distorting and twisting the letter to justify exploitation and ruin. Unto these, the voice of the Father resonates as a celestial choir, declaring unto them, "In bygone ages, I dispatched my messengers to impart unto you the law, which is the way and the life. Yet you returned hatred for love, and you destroyed those who came to elevate you. For you refused to be uplifted, choosing instead, like swine, to wallow in the mire. Furthermore, those who arrogated unto themselves the role of instructing you in the law fearfully permitted you to favor the mere letter and even to obliterate the word, terrified that they might be cast aside and others chosen to lead you. But now the appointed hour is at hand, and I have chosen one, deeply beloved, to appear before you to expound the law and to assist you in applying it within the spirit of the law. For only thus may death be vanquished and misfortune cast aside. Woe unto you who refuse to receive the messenger and his message. Just as your forefathers destroyed the spirit of the law, so shall the law now consume all who obstinately refuse to obey it, and only the 99 shall live to behold my face and to inherit the kingdom of heaven, which my messenger shall establish, and which shall endure in tranquil peace until the subsequent dispensation. Thus spake the Lord God Jehovah Adonai, Father of light, unto all the peoples of the earth through his messenger. Manisis. Such a monumental undertaking has now been rendered possible by virtue of a new cycle of liberality and enlightenment, an era in which the laborers are no longer liable to be sacrificed to the Moloch of bigotry and superstition, as was their fate in centuries past. Assuming that such masters exist, that they possess profound erudition, and that they stand ready to assist humanity, the world itself must be thoroughly prepared and willing to accept such aid if it is to derive any benefit therefrom, rather than destroying its agent italics ours. Guided, therefore, by a comprehensive philosophy, equipped with the key to symbolism, and supported by these grand masters, the lost mysteries of antiquity may be fully restored, compelling them to yield their hoary secrets for the edification of the coming ages. Only the perfect master, He who has lived his life in strict accordance with the law until the soul is brought into full consciousness can so delicately chip away the stone as to reveal the divine ideal in all its grandeur and beauty, ultimately endowing it with the breath of life, which is immortality. Such is the arduous architecture of character. The fable of Pygmalion and Galatea is, fundamentally, more profoundly real than recorded history. The true thread of history does not lie in isolated facts, arbitrarily joined by conjecture and warped to suit the ignorant, bigoted, and time-serving opinions of men. Rather, the authentic thread is to be sought in the majestic theme that weaves through the symphony of creation. It is found in the lofty ideals that inspire the life of mankind, guiding humanity from the earthly clod and the dismal lowlands, where the phantoms of superstition and fear persistently hover, upward to the resplendent mountains of light, where inspiration and peace dwell eternally. Such exalted ideals are embodied in the Christ of the true Church, in Hiram of the Masonic order, and in the perfect masters of the occult fraternities. No genuine Mason, imbued with the spirit of liberality, shall treat any religion or religious belief, even should it possess but a single sincere adherent, with derision or contempt, nor shall he exclude from fellowship any brother who affirms the existence of God, the brotherhood of man, and the immortality of the soul. This Catholic, liberal, and all-embracing spirit constitutes the very foundation of Masonry, and any departure from it is intrinsically unmasonic, serving only to subvert the ancient landmarks and the true genius of Masonry. True Masonry has, throughout the ages, held aloft the torchlight of toleration, equity, and fraternity. The bigoted sectarian, whoever he may be, invariably divides the world into two distinct classes: those who, with zeal and blind faith, accept his dogmas, and those who do not. Within its ritualism and monitorial lessons, Masonry imparts no teachings concerning morals, science, religion, or any other department of human knowledge or interest that are not concurrently espoused by modern schools of thought or by the sages of antiquity. In these specific domains, it harbors no secrets whatsoever. Rather, it is within the ancient symbols of Freemasonry that its true secrets lie concealed, and these remain as densely veiled to the Mason as to the uninitiated, unless he has diligently studied the science of symbolism in general, and Masonic symbolism in particular. In lieu of the designation mystic Masonry, the term symbolic Masonry might aptly have been employed. However, it is precisely therein that the entire secret resides, a profound mystery, and up to the present day, few Masons have summoned the interest or the patience prerequisite for the rigorous investigation that might yield its revelation. This is stated merely as a matter of fact, and is by no means intended as either a criticism or a reproach. If, lacking an understanding of the profound significance of Masonic symbolism and its transcendent importance, Masons have permitted the entire organization not only to fail in achieving genuine progress but also to degenerate, then that is indeed a reproach. Never has there been a greater need than at the present epoch, nor so magnificent an opportunity, for Masonry to assume its rightful place among the institutions of mankind and to compel recognition through the simple power of brotherly love, relief, and truth, founded upon a philosophy the likes of which exists nowhere outside of its ancient symbols. Should the majority of Masons fail to realize the true significance and value of their possessions, there is all the more reason for those who do comprehend to speak out, even in the face of discouragement and detraction, and to exert their utmost effort to demonstrate the truth. Does any intelligent Mason truly imagine that the guilds of practical Masons from a century and a half ago originated the order of Freemasons? There were indeed architects and master builders among their ranks, Yet the vast majority of those Masons were far more ignorant, laboring as manual servants, than the majority of such builders are today. Freemasonry is modeled upon the framework of the ancient Osirian mysteries, complete with their glyphs and allegories. This is no mere coincidence. The parallels are drawn far too closely. Albert Pike arrived at the conclusion, following prolonged and patient investigation, that certain Hermetic philosophers played a crucial role in the formation of the organization of free and accepted Masons. And if these sages encoded within its symbolism far more than is apparent upon the surface, embedding deeper truths than the superficial student might readily discern, it was evidently their design that future generations should unearth and utilize these profounder secrets. In brief, therefore, the authentic secrets of Freemasonry reside within its symbols, and the deciphered meaning of these symbols reveals a profound philosophy and a universal science that have never been transcended by humanity. An unbroken thread of tradition connects modern Masonry with the most venerable mysteries of antiquity. These ancient landmarks may be discovered across every nation and throughout every era. Notwithstanding the connection that so evidently exists, notes Dr. Rebold, between the ancient mysteries and the Freemasonry of our day, the latter should be considered an initiation rather than a continuation of those ancient mysteries. For initiation into them was the entering of a school, wherein were taught art, science, morals, law, philosophy, philanthropy, and the wonders and worship of nature. Dr. Buck, Mystic Masonry. The universal science and sublime philosophy once taught within the greater mysteries of Atlantis, Egypt, Chaldea, Persia, and India have undoubtedly become a dead letter within the lodges of modern Freemasonry. Nevertheless, this science and philosophy have neither been lost nor destroyed, as so many, even among scholars, are inclined to believe. Rather, they are meticulously conserved within the archives of the older fraternities, ever remaining at the command of the sincere aspirant who possesses the willingness to study, to learn, and to truly live the life. Nothing of the ancient mysteries shall be withheld from the genuine student, provided he is sufficiently liberal in thought and pure of mind to perceive the underlying beauties even within the grossest exterior shell. Only man's inherent unworthiness can prevent him from rending the veil of the mysteries, a truth which brings to mind the ancient and profoundly accurate maxim, "Naught from without can harm you. Fear only that which is within yourself." How exceedingly beneficial it would be if all men were to comprehend the essence of this saying and to conduct their lives in accordance with its spirit. What a swift dismissal there would be of 20th-century reformers, those fanatics and hypocrites who seek to legislate virtue through the enactment of countless statutes, necessitating an army, in the parlance of the street, of grafters and political hangers-on, who must be maintained at the profound expense of an unfortunate yet honest citizenry. It must be borne in mind that within modern Freemasonry, as in the ancient mysteries and in all the truly great religions, there has always existed an exoteric portion dispensed to the masses, the uninitiated, and an esoteric doctrine exclusively reserved for the initiate who could properly appreciate and respect it. This hidden doctrine was revealed progressively in degrees, entirely contingent upon the candidate demonstrating his fitness to receive, conceal, and rightly utilize the knowledge so imparted. Perhaps few professed Christians are aware that such was precisely the case with Christianity itself during its first 2 or 3 centuries. Dr. Buck, Mystic Masonry. This, in its unadulterated purity, as imparted by Jesus himself, constituted the true primitive religion, that which was communicated by God to the patriarchs and is now once more delivered unto his new messenger, man Isis. It was no novel religion, but rather the reproduction of the ancient faith, meticulously reconstructed and reinterpreted to suit the prevailing conditions of the times and the immediate needs of the populace. Moreover, its true and perfect morality is identical to the morality found within the spirit of Masonry, just as it mirrors the morality of every creed from antiquity. Albert Pike, Morals and Dogma. St. Augustine himself conceded that what is now termed the Christian religion existed among the ancients and was not absent from the human race until Christ Jesus came, from which time this religion, which existed already, began to be called Christian. Heckthorn, Secret Societies. In the nascent days of Christianity, there existed an initiation akin to those practiced by the pagans. Individuals were admitted exclusively upon the fulfillment of special conditions. To attain a comprehensive knowledge of the doctrine, they were required to pass through 3 degrees of instruction and rigorous training. Albert Pike, Morals and Dogma. The exoteric facet of the new religious inculcations, which had come to be known as Christian, was openly communicated to all who would listen and follow. However, the esoteric doctrine, as so strongly intimated by Jesus when he cautioned, "Cast not your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet and turn again and rend you," was conveyed exclusively through oral transmission during the initiation into the mysteries. This profound knowledge was imparted only to those who were willing not merely to listen to a discourse, but who were truly ready to live out the tenets they were taught. These Christian mysteries were originally derived, as famously admitted by the usurper and destroyer Constantine, directly from the so-called pagan mysteries. Following the First Council of Nicaea, the mysteries instituted by Jesus were subjected by his followers to a novel, profoundly degenerative, and, if one might coin a term, emasculating interpretation. As the church founded by Constantine accrued power and pursued dominion, it forfeited what little of the great secret it had previously retained. Since that time, it has vehemently denied that genuine and desirable mysteries ever existed, striving to obliterate all records and monuments that contradict this denial. Nevertheless, despite the enduring efforts of Constantine's cohorts from the Church's infancy to the present day, the secret doctrine and the ancient mysteries have persisted. They have been imparted through a direct lineage of succession to earnest aspirants willing to relinquish all preconceived notions and personal opinions, applying the instructions bestowed upon them so that they might unravel the mystery of their own souls. By reading in the light thus revealed, they discern all that pertains to God and to their spiritual essence, which, in truth, encompasses the entirety of the greater mysteries. Just as a continuous succession of initiate teachers existed from prehistoric eras down to the epoch of Constantine, so too, despite the terrors orchestrated by the followers of this man, who did more than any other to dismantle the spirit of the teachings imparted by God's messenger of the first century, a direct line of succession has continued within the secret fraternities ever since. No earthly power, nor any organization instituted by man, can impede the perpetuation of this lineage, for there shall always be men sufficiently discreet to avoid betrayal, and sufficiently intrepid to brave death if necessary, in the service of God and the soul. Modern Freemasonry honors among its venerable great teachers Zoroaster, Pythagoras, Plato, and numerous others, providing a brief summary of their doctrines within certain of its degrees. Masonry, in a certain sense, encompasses them all and has assimilated their precepts. These figures were all initiates of the mysteries, and, fundamentally, their doctrines were identical. All promulgated the existence of the grand architect of the universe, the immortality of the soul, and the unqualified brotherhood of man. And with these primitive and fundamental truths, Masonry remains in absolute accord. Dr. Buck, Mystic Masonry. The entered apprentice commences his journey with the triangle surmounting the square, signifying that matter has not yet become spiritualized. As he progresses, the descent occurs, and we then observe the triangle within the square. Ultimately, as a master, the ascent of the square into the triangle commences, where the material is transmuted into the spiritual, a process which every master mason will comprehend. Because masonry is a progressive science, the advancement of the neophyte is thereby made to align more correctly with the process of evolution, development, and the descent of spirit into matter, or rather, the transmutation of the gross into the soul fire or light. This is illustrated by the manner in which the candidate is instructed to wear his apron throughout each degree within the Blue Lodge. The entered apprentice is not merely a hewer of wood and a drawer of water, but a novice, an aspirant striving toward spiritual attainment, receiving his initial instruction. This is symbolized by his apron. The tradition of the Master's word, signifying the attainment of soul consciousness, illumination, or immortalization, and the power which its possession grants to the Master. The narrative of its loss, representing the forfeiture of the soul's light through the abuse of creative power, indicated in the fiat, "The soul that sinneth it shall die. Cast not thy seed upon the ground, lest it become a serpent and rend thee," and the search for its recovery, symbolizing the retention or exchange, the raising, and the transmutation of the seed into the fire or light of the soul. The tradition of the ineffable name in connection with the lost word, discovering the soul's light and, through the fire, becoming capable of standing face to face with the soul's creator, the Father of light, he who is Jehovah Adonai, demonstrating that it could not or should not be pronounced except with bated, indrawn, or updrawn breath, or, as the Hindu tradition declares, with the hand covering the mouth serving as a symbol of a receptive orifice, and the hand covering the mouth symbolizing that which overshadows, the symbol of the 3 greater and 3 lesser lights, and the rhetorical play made in many instances upon the word light, the fires of the soul itself in conjunction with the lost word. All of these references and applications constitute a complex symbolism operating within and toward a common center or glyph, which, taken in conjunction with the building and restoration of the temple, the regeneration of the body, comprises the secret symbolism of Masonry and illustrates the entirety of the initiation process. The true nature of authentic, rather than merely ritualistic initiation has already been articulated. These symbols, when accurately interpreted, serve a dual purpose. First, they reveal a comprehensive philosophy regarding the creation of the universe and of humanity, unfolding all essences, powers, and potencies, alongside their mutual relations and correlations. Second, they unveil the process of initiation as synonymous with the uninterrupted evolution of man, guided by knowledge and design along the lines of least resistance. In the 3rd degree, the candidate impersonates Hiram, who has been demonstrated to be identical to the Christos of the Greeks, as well as to the sun gods of all nations. The superiority of Masonry at this juncture over all other exoteric religions consists in this: all such religions mistake the symbol for the thing symbolized. Christ was originally akin to the Father. Now he is rendered identical with the Father. Herein lies the true meaning of Abiph, of or from my Father. Hiram, Christos, and Abiph at one with the Father, of or from, and once again returning to or achieving at one meant with him. By deifying Jesus, the entirety of humanity is bereft of the Christos as an eternal potency within every human soul, a latent or embryonic Christ residing within every man. In thus deifying a single man, They have orphaned the whole of humanity while simultaneously constructing a false and destructive paradigm of salvation. Conversely, Masonry, by symbolically having every candidate personify Hiram, has preserved, at least in form, the original teaching which constitutes a universal glyphic. Few can. Do you want access to this and all the complete audiobooks on the channel, plus the ebook version? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code in the left corner of the screen to access our library, where you can listen to your favorite esoteric books without ad interruptions, lock your screen, or use other apps while the narration plays, and even download the ebook version to follow along as you listen. Listen on your computer via web browser, or download the app from the Play Store. After subscribing, you will receive an email with your login details, password, and step-by-step instructions on how to access the books through the Hotmart app.